Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Who Needs Shoes. And we are here today with a very special guest. My guest, Lucy Prawl, has spent over 3 decades as a vital thread in the fabrics of community advocacy, working not only as a voice for change, but as a strategist across education, housing, and behavioral health. From her appointment to the Pennsylvania's governor's Special Education Advisory Panel to her current position stewarding outreach and strategic projects at the PEAL Center, Lucy has become a trusted guide for both state officials and local families navigating the often complex landscape of disability rights. Her path is one of continuous growth, a background in political science from Rutgers, specialized training from Temple, and her current pursuit of a master's in community-based education and leadership. But these credentials are only part of her story. What truly defines Lucy's work is the way she integrates her professional expertise with her lived experience as a mother. She understands the weight of policy because she has seen its impact at home, guiding a household of children with a wide range of neurodiverse and neurotypical experiences. For Lucy, the work of fulfilling these varied needs at home is the very foundation of her public advocacy. Whether she's contributing to the mission of the NAACP, the League of Women Voters, or the Rotary Club, Lucy brings a perspective that refuses to see advocacy as a separate silo. For her, civil engagement and family life are part of the same purposeful whole. Please welcome the thoughtful, the seasoned, and the deeply purposeful Lucy Prawl. Hi, Lucy.
Hey, Tanya. I'm so humbled and honored to be here today. I'm telling you, I feel like a giddy little schoolgirl.
The feeling is mutual, and I'm just so glad you made time to have this conversation. I think those that are listening in are going to learn so much about you, both personally and professionally. So thank you for making this time.
For you, Tanya, always.
Thank you. All right, so I want to start with this question about a concept known as being multi-hyphenated. So when I look at your background, you have multi-hyphenated skills: political science, real estate, behavioral health, and community leadership. Is there a single thread connecting all of those fields that may not be obvious to others?
I think the thread that connects it all, it's a human. It's a human environment. All of them are connected one way or the other. Because if you have real estate, you're dealing with families, you're dealing with individuals, you're dealing with financial, you're dealing with the person's, one thing any realtor will tell you, and this is the real estate hat on right now, you deal with all types of personalities, and that's the mental health connection, So you would be surprised. It's all connected, and I think that's the richness of my diverse background. I've done so many various types of jobs, all legit, mind you. And I think that's what brings the seasoning to what I do. And again, I have friends all across the board. Matter of fact, when I lived in the Poconos, folks used to call my house the United Nations of the block. I mean, I kept it diverse. I believe in being open and listening to others and giving others a platform. Now, it doesn't mean I have to agree with you all the time, but I always listen. And when I was in the teaching field, I used to always tell my students, tell me that you know, that you know, that you know. So even if your answer was correct, you still had to explain to me why and how. And that's the key to actually listening versus always projecting and talking.
So Lucy, I even want to introduce to our audience the work that you do at the PEAL Center. Can you talk a little bit about the PEAL Center and its mission, as well as your mission in advocating for disability rights?
I love the PEAL Center. It definitely is a center, as you know, as a former chair of the board, chairman of the board, that the PEAL Center is a platform that allows families, individuals, and organizations to have a resource, to make that connection, to have someone when you're not too sure where to go. It's like a guidepost, I would say, in the field of special education and disability rights. It's one of those places where we all have a story. And that's the beauty of all of us that are working together. We all have a story. We all have a hand in the game, so to speak, if that's what you want to use, that term. So again, that's what I really enjoy about the PEAL Center. And the best way, I always tell people, I'll teach you how to fish, but I ain't fishing for you. And that's where your listeners and the viewers have to Google pealcenter.org and find out more information about us. Because again, me teaching you or telling you everything and not giving you, empowering you to be able to look for those resources, that means you'll be always beholding to me, and also to not be able to navigate the system on your own. And it's key because, again, as an advocate, I always told people, again, like I said, I'll teach you how to fish, but I'm not fishing for you. My goal is that you no longer need me, that you'll be able to go out there and find the resources and do what you need to do.
I want to now go from talking about the work that you do professionally to also the work that you do at home. So, for those that don't know, Lucy is a phenomenal, constantly in the public person. But I'd like for you to talk about like your home base as well. So for those who don't know your family story, how would you describe your family life and how you do all the work together to ensure that your children, regardless of their specific needs, feel that their path is being championed with the same intensity?
The key to, again, the way that I tend to parent, which my kids say I'm mean, which I'm not, but that's what they say I am. I always made sure my children had exposure to things. By that, may it be museums, maybe parades, maybe Christmas tree lightings, which wink, wink, my kids are right now like, yes, we do not want to look at another Christmas tree lighting. But, I made sure, maybe skiing. May it be, musicals. May it be theater. May it be dance. I always made sure that they had exposure to that because I didn't want them to be lacking, or when it came time to be in the real world, that there's certain things they wouldn't know. Of course, it's impossible to know everything. But again, my love of knowledge was the same thing that I try to invoke onto my children. And I can honestly say, the three of them, I have two boys and a girl, the girl right smack in the middle. They all have, I guess, I can't complain, turned out pretty good despite my my haphazard way of teaching and also to parenting. But I made sure, and then too, I made sure they felt safe, protected, and secure to come to me and speak to me about anything and everything. Because again, as you mentioned, I did work also too in the mental health field. So I know how important and how key it is, especially of children of color, to understand that there's someone there to make sure that they feel safe and secure and they have a voice of their own.
Lucy, I'm thinking about like with my own boys having Maceo, who has autism, intellectual disabilities, speech delay, Keith identified as gifted and talented. And I find in as much as I can recognize their unique skill sets, their aspirations, their personalities, one of the things that I am learning and trying to learn to do better every day is how to support their relationship as brothers, as siblings. Because sometimes because they are so unique, if you will, that them learning how to take the initiative to be siblings together is hard, even though they're only 14 months apart. I'm wondering if you experience similar, and how do you go about supporting each of your children, and what's been your approach to try to make sure that everybody, has mom's love, and at the same time is supported individually and at the same time supporting them building and forging relationships between themselves as siblings.
Mm-hmm. And while you're asking me that question, I'm thinking I've never really stopped to think about it. By that, I made sure everyone was involved. If one had a soccer game, we all went to the soccer game. If one received the award, we all participated. And even down to when the oldest one was in college, I left the two at home. We still made sure we would go down and visit him down at Georgetown. We made sure would go home and visit him. Then when the second one went to, we made sure we went to Stevenson, down in Maryland to visit her. And then when it came time, I must say the last one, poor thing, he got kind of left out because by that time the rest of them were grown. But I made sure that we still participated. Not as much as the other two. Now that I think about it, he got a little slighted there. Made sure that I was still there. And of course, they communicate, trust me. They have their own code and their own whatever. And some of the things, a little side story. I didn't realize when I was out the house, they would take the beds off, the frame, and use the beds as like a sled down the steps. The house.
Oh my gosh.
And guess what? I'm sitting down one Thanksgiving and I'm here listening to the stories, being told how they're laughing between the three. And I was like, when did you guys do that? And they just kind of laughed at me. I said, how did you guys get it all back together without me not even knowing that? I still don't know the answer to that, but in other words, they have their own language, their own communication, but they all, and I'm not saying it's peachy keen and rainbows and lollipops from time to time, but one thing I could say with them, if someone bothers one of them, all of them are together. You know what I mean? They have their individuals and, whatever here and there. But one thing I could say about them, they're very protective of each other. And to a point, they're so protective of me and their father. I'm like, okay, we're the grown ones here, please. Thank you. If I do something that, that one doesn't like, they call up the other one. Guess what Mom did? And then I get, yeah. I'm just like, excuse me, I'm the mother here. Thank you, but that's okay. I allow them to a certain degree. But again, I make sure that their strengths were always, and we all know who's whatever strengths and whatever, but I always listen to. If one wanted to be an astronaut, guess what? That's what we would work on. If one wanted to be a pilot, you know what I mean? Whatever they wanted. And the only thing that I would ask of them, you're okay to try it. We'll try it. But if you choose not to continue, at least finish that session, that term, that whatever it is. And it's okay. I never added pressure to them. Once they said, Mom, I don't think this is for me. I'm like, okay. But you had to finish. You couldn't just drop out. You had to finish. And that's one thing that I always pretty much stressed with them. But as siblings, I'm an only child, so I don't even understand the sibling concept. 1 minute they're fighting, and the next minute can I go talk to such and such? I'm like, but didn't you just say you wanted them?
The baddest on the face of the earth thing.
I'm like, wait a minute. But again, that's one thing I can honestly say. I tried my best to be very supportive, and even Keel, even though the two older ones say that I took it easier on the youngest one, they say because I was too tired. I'm like, sure. But, but I try to keep it balanced and support it.
I want to move now to talking back on that professional level and ways in which you've learned to be an advocate. So, here in Pennsylvania, we have Patent. Can you talk a little bit about what Patent is, how you, in your experience with that organization and entity, learned about how to be an advocate as well?
Well, the way that I got into it, I originally, as you know, moved from New Jersey to Pennsylvania, to the Pocono Mountains. So you can imagine, and I was in the rural part of the Poconos, where even the folks in the Poconos called us the country folks. So that should tell you, I was at the west end of the Poconos. Very, at the time, Pennsylvania Dutch area. And left New Jersey as a federal HUD inspector for housing. So as you know, there isn't too much HUD housing out in the rural parts of the Poconos. So the way that I ended up getting into the beginning parts of advocacy, I'm always one, as you said, I stay very active in my community. I believe in giving. I believe in giving back because a lot of people gave into me. And I definitely, that's one of my mantras. I definitely have to give back and try to make a difference. I started helping out in the local school district. And God rest his soul, Dr. Blood was, his name literally Dr. Blood. He was a superintendent of schools. And he saw how good I got along with the children, and, you know, because I can be silly and I can play. And that's another story in reference to when I would teach. The kids loved me. Hence, that's how I got the name Miss Lucy. The kids named me Miss Lucy in terms of endearment. And he saw how well I got along with the young people. So he said, you know, Mrs. Prawl, would you be interested in possibly, we have this one student that needs support. He was on the spectrum, and it's funny because back in those days, they didn't even use that term, you know, but he needed assistance in reference to reading. So I said, sure, I'll, help out a couple of hours a week, end up doing that. And I didn't realize people were observing how I was teaching or how I was instructing the young man. And they said, did you ever think of teaching? And I'm like, teaching? No, I never thought of that. So they gave me emergency licensure, I guess, certification, emergency, and the rest is history. So I end up teaching in quite a few of the local school districts with persons or young people in the special ed department. And of course, I did mainstream also. But that's how I started with advocacy. Hence, after a while, and I did that for about 5 to 6 years. And I wanted something more stable. There was an ad in the paper for the ARC of Pennsylvania, the ARC of Lehigh, Northampton counties. And they were looking for an advocate. I said, an educational advocate. I said, let me try it. So I went and applied. And at first, it was down to 2 people, myself and another person. They hired the other person. And I was like, oh, that's okay. Because you know me, I still had my teaching gig, as the kids would call it. And with that, they ended up, that person didn't work out. And they asked me, would you be still interested in the position? So you know me, I said, okay, let me try it again. So I went, and I laugh because when I think about it now, I always thank Karen Shoemaker, who just recently retired from the ARC of Lehigh in Northampton County. She didn't give up on me. I went, and then I said, nah, I don't think I want it. Well, they called me like begging, please, we think you're the perfect candidate, we want you. And I said, okay. And the rest is history. I can honestly say there were people who guided me in reference to advocacy. A person who's still at the ARC of Lehigh in Northampton County is Susan Kluge, and she was my mentor. And when I'm telling you, like they say, being baptized by fire, yeah, that's pretty much the way that process of advocating. But when you look at my history, I've always advocated. When I attended Rutgers, I started the West Indian. I'm a child of immigrant parents from Jamaica, West Indies. And I started Rutgers University, WISA, which is West Indian Student Organization. I started that. When I worked for the county in New Jersey, I started the first child care center in Essex County Hall of Records. I started that. I've always, and when I lived in an apartment building, we had a landlord that wasn't really the nicest, and guess who started the tenant association? And Sandy could tell you about that one because she knew those days because we lived in the same apartment building at the time. So again, I've always been advocating, and I think that it all comes down to my upbringing, being a child of immigrant parents. Again, it was me who had to bring the information back home and explain it to my parents how the system worked and what could be done and not. And I think, I forgot what the term is for what they call children of immigrant parents, where it's not bilingual, but it's trilingual, I think it is. I forgot what the actual term is, where you see, like, for instance, the young Hispanic young person translating for the family members to explain what is happening. It's the same basic premise. And I was always the one that had to kind of navigate the system and understand, okay, this is the way you do this, Mom. This is the way you do this, Dad. This is what you have, I've always done that. So I've always advocated. When I look back at it, I realized from a very young child, I've always been the one that folks kind of relied on to kind of help explain it and make it simpler. And then also too, it's just one of those things that, again, I'm a big proponent of giving back. You have to give back, because especially if you're blessed, you have to. Because what does it say? Much given, and you got to give
so
back.
So much given is required.
Yes. Which I can tell you, sometimes it gets frustrating. Sometimes it hurts, because the people that you hurt, sometimes they come back at you. What do they say? No good deed done sometimes. But again, at least when you've given your all and you've done your best. That's all you can ask for. And again, I believe in definitely empowering people, because I know my job is done when you no longer need me. Because again, that's the goal of advocacy.
I'm thinking about when you've just talked about the variety of ways in which you have advocated, whether it's on the apartment level complex or it's on a state or even federal level. When you look at your accomplishments over like decades, is there a particular structural change that you see has happened that you're like, wow, I didn't think this could be possible 30 years ago, but it's possible now?
I just think the freedom of the voice now. So many times in the early days, I'm making them sound like I'm ancient, but in the early, you didn't really have that voice. You didn't have the outlets that you have now. Even though we know certain entities are trying to close and narrow the outreach, there's there'll be ways that the story will be told one way or the other. And I think that's a big difference. Right now, as you know, we're going through a little rough period, and I'm trying to be nice about it. But I think it's an eye-opening situation to let us realize how much we've taken for granted. We just automatically assume things would be, status quo and whatever. And every now and then, sometimes you have to get shaken up to realize how, you have to make sure that you're still in the fight. You're still in the arena. Because another thing that they say about how I don't want to be on the menu. and I always tell people, and I ain't the appetizer. So, so it's one of those things that sometimes we took it for granted that somebody else would do it, or somebody else. No, this is a time period that we all have to be collectively together. So in reference to your initial question, I'm just I love it how the young people, now that's something that I love. The young people get it. A lot of people don't give these young people credit, but they get it. I remember for years, again, being a political science major from Rutgers, I used to tell people all the time, vote, vote, vote. Everybody like, Lucy, Lucy, Now, people are more.
Your vote is.
Yes, more people are more civic minded and are aware. Even if they're not making any steps, at least you can have a conversation. May be for what you're for or against. At least to be having a conversation. The only thing that saddens me is where now folks aren't as forgiving or graceful about it, I guess, if that's the word. It's like a hard clad line. And I remember when I first got into the whole political field, everybody talked to everybody. Sure, when you're on the floor, everybody had, you were this and you were that. And once the lights were down or 5 o'clock came, everybody was hanging at the same place. People were in the same bars and the same restaurants. Families, dealt with each other, whatever. This diversity that I'm seeing now, that's the only thing I can say really saddens me. Because again, we know politically how some deals were made back then. It wasn't a hardcore, you're this and you're that. And one thing I always tell people, if you look at my history too, I have always been, I have friends on both sides, as they say. I've had friends on the Republican and Democrat. I have friends on the Democrat, Republican. I don't take sides. I go by your worth and your integrity and your keeping to your word and your character. That's what I look at, because I don't care. On both sides, you have people that are questionable, but it's key to make sure that I would like to see those days come back again, where we can literally, it's okay to disagree. But to take it to the level that it is now, that's what I can say saddened to me.
It's
that change. But again, I would love to see that, where we can just have a debate, have a discussion, and be okay, and still, like I always say, again, as you can tell, I'm one of those people with quotes here and there. I don't have to eat, drink, or sleep with you. I'm good. It's okay. You don't have to agree with everything, and I don't want you to agree with everything I say. I want you to challenge. Remember what I said? Let me know that you know that you know. Okay? Exactly. Because again, you may embark some information on to me that I'm like, wow, I never thought about it that way. But if we all agree with everything everybody says, where does the cognitive thinking? Where does the point of being, thinking, making decisions on your own?
Lucy, one of the things that's such an asset is that you are very clear-minded about that you have a right to have a voice, and that too, regardless of the company you keep, you're always willing and receptive to other people's voices. How do you support parents who, once they have the diagnosis, if you will, about their child, and now they have to advocate for that child? That's such a new experience. I'm thinking, when we have that first 100 days after getting a diagnosis, like you've gone a certain way in life, and now all of a sudden that will have to radically change. And within a forum and situation where you might not be readily informed or even readily willing, because it's very scary, it's very uncertain. How do you support parents in that moment to claim their voice, to activate it, and to actualize it in advocacy of their child?
And the reason why I'm smiling, you know how many parents I had to convince them this is not the end of the world? I'm telling you, advocating that has been the thing that I can honestly say, it's not the end of the world. It's just a different way of thinking. It's just a different way of doing something. Think about it. We all don't learn the same way. And again, I'm keeping it basic. We all don't learn the same way. Like, for instance, I'm a very visual person. Now, I'm not saying I can't take a lecture in, but guess what? I'm a very visual person. I definitely believe in the sky's the limit. Maybe that's my Pollyanna thinking. I don't see any limit. If you can't do it one way, hey, let's find another way to do it. And that's where I think sometimes parents get caught in that diagnosis, and they get trapped in what Dr. Google says. They hit the, oh my goodness. No, that is just a generalized statement. But my thing is, you don't have to buy that. I'm not saying that your child may not have a reading deficit. Your child may not. No one's saying that. It may just take a little bit longer. Your child may have hearing loss. have, vision loss. Guess what? There's other ways to do things. Everything isn't visual. Everything isn't auditory. You know what there's different ways to learn things. And the beauty of it is, because of my years of experience, I've seen some phenomenal things done. I mean, we could be here all day talking about some of the phenomenal things and some of the phenomenal people that I've met. And again, if they were thought in that box and thought, okay, woe's me, I can't do it, guess what? It wouldn't get done. But you definitely have to believe that, okay, we may not do it the way that everyone else does it, but that's okay. We can do it another way. And the bottom line, as long as it gets done, hey. and that has always been the way that I've thought of things. That we have
Go ahead.
No, I was saying we have to really think out of the box. I know that's a cliche, but that definitely is something, thinking out of the box.
No, and that's something that you definitely, you're incredible at doing that. And I actually want to ask and just even like push a little bit around, how do you get parents to do that? Or different people, organizations and things that you work with, where if they're stuck in a box and there's only one way that they're thinking about doing something, but given like your vast knowledge and experience, you know that there are other possibilities, but that paradigm shift is the first thing that particular person has to get. You have to help that person get through or over in order to arrive at that mindfulness or mindset around advocacy. Like, how do you help people do that paradigm shift?
I think example is the best. That's why. Because browbeating someone, telling them, no, I'm big at, I'll show you. Let's look at certain options. And I'll be honest, there's a couple of parents in my years that were like pushback, which again, I allow them because it's your child. I understand. And that saddens me because when you see the potential in a child, and it's not being met because the adults are caught in their head, so to speak, of what can be, that saddens me. That saddens me. And I guess that goes back to me as maybe that's my childhood trauma. By that I'm saying, because again, being a child of immigrants, and again, my mother was the only Jamaican that we knew. My mother and father were the only Jamaicans at the time that we knew. So you can imagine. And then also too, I have a stutter. I stuttered and severely stuttered, where I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The King's Speech.
Yes.
That was my speech pattern. And it took a fourth grade, and I always thank her, fourth grade speech therapist to kind of free me, as I say. And I ain't stopped talking since. But I remember the trauma of people not understanding, people not listening to me, people not taking what I said serious. And I guess that's where the trauma part comes in for me. That's why I believe of thinking out of the box. I've climbed mountains and I'm afraid of heights. You get what I mean? I climbed Mount Washington, literally on foot, not by car, not by trolley, on foot, scared all the way, but I did it. So it's one of those things where, sorry, a little cough there.
That's okay.
But it's one of those things where I've never let things kind of deter me. I've always, and again, I guess that's where my faith comes in. I'll be very honest. No isn't an answer to me. And of course, and I'm talking about being realistic. Sometimes no is for your benefit. Right. And when you look back at it, like, woo, good thing that was a no. But I'm just saying, as a whole, I see it as a challenge. But what a person can do, may they have limitations or not, you'd be surprised. There's no limitation. It's just looking at it differently.
In talking about ways in which of getting people to look at things differently, I want to bring us to talking about your work like on policy. As a member of Pennsylvania's Special Education Advisory Panel, you have the ear of the Secretary of Education. When you're in those meetings, what is the perspective or the lived reality of Pennsylvania families that you are most intentional about keeping at the forefront of the conversation?
Wow, it's funny you say that. And also, too, as you know, I'm chair of Disability Rights of Pennsylvania also. So again, I make sure that I bring to the table what I'm hearing, what I'm experiencing, what I see. And I definitely believe in sharing that information. I don't hold back. I do stay quiet because sometimes you do have to listen to hear whatever everyone's saying. But I can honestly say, as you know, they've been going through some ups and downs because of the changes of the system. So presently, we still have the ear. Carol Clancy is phenomenal. She's an excellent person who she really listens. And she's very approachable. And that's the key to it, making sure that the people that are at that level are actually listening. And that's one thing I can honestly say that she does. Same thing with disability rights. We have a phenomenal board. We have phenomenal employees, staff. They actually listen. They're actually doing the groundwork. As you know, some of the recent cases you may have seen on the news, the way some of the children in some of the residential settings were being treated. They've won cases on that in reference to the way education was implemented in one of the major cities they've been able to be on. So again, it's bringing to them information because they can't fight or they can't challenge what they don't know out there. And it's impossible for everyone to be everywhere. So again, I make sure that I do listen. And again, that's the key to it. And making sure that what I have or what I know, I share it. And that's key. You have to share it because keeping it to myself is doing what? It's not helping anyone. It's not enlightening anyone. It's not empowering anyone. So.
I want to ask you a follow-up to that. When you look at your involvement, like from the League of Women Voters to the NAACP, even to the Bethlehem Food Co-op, you always make a conscious decision to be present in rooms where disability may not necessarily be the first item on the agenda. Is there a strategic choice that you make to ensure that diversity is never treated as a separate issue, but a fundamental part of every community conversation?
There ain't no answer. Yes. And you know me. Yes. I don't let them forget it. I'm sorry. That's just the way I am. And again, because no one should be left away from the table. And that's key. That's key. No one. Because again, and I guess, again, that's my personal trauma. I know how it feels to be kind of left out. You know, and it's one of those things, no, not on my watch. That's one thing I say. No, not on my watch. I make sure I bring it up. I make sure it's at the table. And again, sometimes when I speak, people are like, oh, we know what Lucy's going to, yeah, guess what? If you're forgetting about it, guess who's going to remind you? I'm here. Hi. and again, they call me the smiling advocate. So, and I say it with a smile.
And I was even going to ask, can you share for the listeners a few examples of which you've made sure that these issues are brought to the forefront and not forgotten in these spaces that you're in?
Just say, for instance, on our recent board meeting, I mentioned to, and I'm talking about Disability Rights Pennsylvania, I mentioned to them, has anyone thought about the persons that have disabilities that have been maybe arrested by ICE? And most people haven't even thought of that, how that could be, what happens to those persons that may have a disability, that may have an intellectual disability that are caught up in that. Or ICE, who's dealing with them? In reference to education, I make sure that persons of colors, persons of other cultures, things like that, that is made sure, may it be down to printed materials being, on various languages, just making sure certain things are done. Again, because there are inequities in every system. I don't care which system you talk about. And that's why it's key to make sure that along with the cultural, whatever, cultural and racial inequities, you also have inequities within the special education area or the, disability community, because people tend to forget. And the thing about it is, and they have a thing that you always presume competency. And also too, you may not be disabled now, but when you get older, when you get aged and things like that, guess what? You're going to have to learn how to do things differently, learn how to maybe rely on people, different things like that. So again, it's something that people tend to forget, but it's there. It's in your face all the time.
What I want to do now is, like, in light of how much we've talked about all the different areas that you are involved and invested in, to even now talk about how one of the things that's really wonderful about you is that you're also a lifelong learner. So right now you're currently pursuing an MA in community-based education and leadership. After decades of success, what was the specific missing piece or something else that you were looking for that led you back to the classroom? And what is the next level of impact you're preparing for?
And that's a loaded question. And I know you know the answer to that one, but I don't have a problem sharing it. I just have always been inquisitive that way. I always believe in the importance of education and learning, and also to just new things. Like, for instance, everyone's scared of AI. And the thing about it, how can you be afraid of something if you don't know about it and you haven't checked it out? And it's up to you if you choose to use it or not, or if you can, or what, and my thing, and I've always been like a curious person. Again, keeping it positive, I've been curious, but I ain't that curious. But it's one of those things that definitely, learning I've always had a thirst for that. And as you know, I plan to literally walk in May to get my master's, and then off to get my doctorate. So that's my next thing to do. So definitely. And I'm caught between if I want to get it in educational, organizational leadership, or if I want to get it in public policy. So, because again, that political side of me and still wanting to give back and make a difference, a true difference. So right now I'm kind of like, but again, learning is definitely something that I've always, and I try to embark that onto my children also too, and persons around me too, because again, sometimes we text, my friends and I, including yourself, because you are my friend, I text back and forth, certain ideals, or when I hear something, my kids tease me. They say I'm a news junkie. I can watch same news. I watch CNN, MSB, I watch them all. And they're like, Ma, it's the same thing. I said, that's all right. But each channel has a different spin and a different way that they show it or produce it. So again, I've always just had that thirst for knowledge. And again, knowledge, that's something you can never acquire. You can't know everything. And there's no age to it. That's ageless. It's ageless.
Priceless. It's priceless. I want to move now to, we've talked about Lucy on the front line, Lucy in the state office, Lucy on the apartment building complex, Lucy in the classroom. I want to now just give you a moment to just kind of sit back and reflect on, after all these places and spaces and things that you're doing, how do you, after a day of fighting for everything from statewide policy to making sure that children have the right materials to learn. How do you, at the end of the day, just downshift to be Lucy?
Be honest, I smile when you say that. I isolate. Because I'll be very honest, there are times I get overstimulated. It's like, oh my goodness, I just have to, by isolate, I mean, I have my own office, I have my own area. I do latch hooking and, and again, watching the news, even though some people are like, you find that relax? Yes. Again, being in the know. Sometimes just quiet time. I'm definitely a lover of music. For some of you who didn't know, back in the day, I was a radio and club DJ, DJ Mocha.
I didn't know that. Really?
Yes. Sandy can tell you, yes.
In the
New York, New Jersey metropolitan area. My DJ name was DJ Mocha. And so played at a couple of clubs and things like that, at club and radio. And definitely love of music. Definitely love of music. Reading, traveling. Again, and the reason why I love these things, because again, you're learning. It's just a process of just ongoing learn. And sometimes just laying in the bed, just watching some TV. Yes. And the big thing I've been on lately, which is driving my kids bonkers, which my daughter said, Mom, you need to just go to Africa. I've been watching the Nigerian soap operas. I just love those things. And like I said, my kids tease me. But as a whole, just being around family. Sometimes being around family and just being quiet. We don't have to say anything. We can just be, because really funny may it be, even though I may be more active outside, when I'm home, I'm very quiet. I'm very, and again, I guess that's the only child part of me. That's what my kids call it. Oh, she's in her only child syndrome again. I'm like, okay, call it what you want, guys. But again, and I do like I said, just that quiet time, that quiet, peaceful time. And again, devotionals, meditation, that whole type of thing. I definitely am big in that. And definitely, like I said, my spirituality. I definitely, that's the way I wind down.
And then speaking of wind down, as we come to the close of our interview, I just have just two more questions for you. You're involved in an incredible number of community organizations, which we've already established. But to the parents who feel that they barely have time to breathe, what's the return on investment of getting involved in local boards or panels like the ones you serve on?
Oh, just being in the know. And just the connections. I can honestly say when I grew up, when I was younger, I never believed in it's who you know. But the older I get, that has come to pass a billion times. And by that, I can honestly say, when I usually do a call for help or send out the bat signal, people respond because they know Miss Lucy doesn't just arbitrarily just every move ask for help, I can honestly say that I've just met such an array of beautiful, wonderful people who are just like myself, trailblazers, just like yourself, who are trailblazers that believe in sharing and believe in connecting with people. And the key, especially being in the disability community, it's important that you connect. You network. Because again, one of the things that I always tell people I learned the most as an advocate from parents. Know that there's a new organization starting up, or there's a new club, or there's this person. I've been able to get that information from parents who have brought that information to me. And again, as an advocate, that's what strengthens me. I've never come in there and say, okay, I know everyone and I'm everything and I'm here to say they know. Enlighten me, help me, again, know that you know that you know. Enlighten me and let me know. And again, I've always had that listening ear to listen to. And again, I guess that comes too from the mental health part, being able to kind of glean from that information the things that you may not be telling me directly, but you are telling me. So.
Thank you for that. So now the last question I have for you is around like the advice that you could give to the next generation. So to the young professional or the parent that is just starting out on their advocacy journey, what is the one thing you want them to know about the endurance that's required for this life? How do you keep the fire burning without letting it burn you out?
You don't have a choice. Simple as that. Every day. And again, it's funny because now people are coming to me and asking me, well, Lucy, how did you do it? I never stopped to think about it. I just did it, and I'm not saying there aren't times when I'm just like tired and again, I isolate. But guess what? Like I always say, every good warrior has a time when they rest. They recharge, get their energy back, and they go back out to fight. And that's basically the way it is. And again, I'll give these other analogies I give to every now and then. And my friend Sandy, Sandy, she'd laugh at that when I said, sometimes I'm just like a lion. You know how a lion will sit and just watch everything going by, but it doesn't mean he doesn't see everything, just watching it go by. There's times when I sit back and observe. And that's the thing about it is, try to get the information that you can, glean what is needed for you. Even with me saying what I'm saying now, it's your path, it's your journey. I can't tell you how to make that journey. But one thing I can say though, your journey is your journey, and to make it rich and involved and just enjoy it. When your child makes those milestones, trust me, your child will make a milestone. May it be a day late or 2 years, 10 years late, but trust me, that milestone will be, long as you don't give up. And that's the hard part. Because when you have all these people in your ear, you can't. No, why not? Just look at it another way. To the parent that are now going into these IEP meetings. You make sure you just don't listen to what they're giving you. Do your little research. Remember I said about, Google, do your little research. See what other options are out there. And what may work today may not work next week. What may not work, and that's okay. It's not the end of the world. Just like I said, just recharge, regroup, and keep it moving. And think about it, life itself is constantly moving and changing. And one thing that I want to make sure that folks that are listening to this podcast understand that there's no, how could you say, there's no wrong way to be involved in a child's life. Do not ever give up on your child. Do not give up on your child, because again, if you're not there to speak for them, who else will be there for them? And it's okay. Everyone may not like everything you do, but guess what? You are, long as you're doing it with not self-interest, and you're there trying to making sure that child is okay, it's all right. It'll be okay. It'll work out. It'll work out.
Lucy, I just realized, even though we're coming to the close, I wanted to make sure that people know about the work you do around 21 and Able, because that pivotal moment that you are working to help people in supporting their children as they're transitioning into adulthood. Can you talk a little bit about that in light of the never giving up metaphor that you were just discussing?
Definitely. And that's where some of the big challenges come. Once that child graduates out of high school and they're going into that adulthood, but yet we still try to keep the strings on that child, like, oh my goodness, the world's going to eat them up and whatever, instead of empowering that child. Because think about it is, one thing I always said, we're harder on persons with disabilities than we are with persons with abilities, okay? And the thing about it is, we need to think of persons with disabilities as having abilities. It's not the same timing. Because one thing I always tell parents, especially during that transition, they may have on that IEP, which stands for Individual Educational Plan, We may have on their IEP that they like gardening. That's been sitting on their IEP since they were 7th grade. And they can't even stand to put their hand in the dirt. Have you asked them? Have you challenged them? Have you seen, have they grown? And think about it. What you and I may have said at 7th grade, are we doing what we're saying we're doing in 7th grade? And most people even say career-wise. My career was to be one day be Supreme Court justice. I'm not doing it, but guess what? I'm still there advocating for people. I'm still doing whatever I wanted to do. And the bottom line comes down to we allow others to be able to change what they want to do and try this and try that, but yet we're not willing to allow that for young people with disabilities. Why? That's not fair. We expect them to be perfect, and there's no perfect person. Show me a perfect person. You know, there's no perfect, but yet our expectations are that they got to be quiet. They got to do this. They got to do that. And I love the story, what you said about the shoes, about your son. It's true. Okay? And then wait, I walk around my house with no shoes. You know what I mean? As soon as I hit the door, boom.
And look at what all you're able to do, even with not wearing shoes. Exactly.
You know, and matter of fact, there's a great book that I love that one of the speakers said at one of the conferences. Just give him the fish. That's the name of her book. Just give him the fish. And that's the thing about it is the school district made such a big deal about this child not getting this toy fish when what is the problem? Just give them the fish and let them move on to something else. But we get fixated on expecting a perfect child to sit with the hand and the this. And no, come on. You have some adults that don't do that. Why would we expect the same from someone else? And of course, if they're going to hurt themselves, that's a whole different thing. But I'm saying being reasonable and just, choose your battles. And that's the thing about it is, but again, as a parent, just starting out and whatever, it's scary. It's scary territory. But trust me, once you get your footing, watch out, world. That's all I got to say. And I'm looking for more and more young people to come on board because so far I've seen some phenomenal trailblazers, some phenomenal folks out there that really get it and understand it. And no one says you're going to be perfect because there's no perfect person, but it's okay to be able to give it your all and be in there for the true reason. And that's your child. Because if you're not the voice of your child, who will be there?
Lucy, just thank you so much for making time in your very busy schedule to share your wisdom, your experiences, your vision, your hope. You are just a light in this world. And I'm just glad personally that you already know in terms of our history, but also with this opportunity to come and be heard by others who don't have the personal opportunity to know you, to still hear your words of enlightenment and be inspired by you. Where can people find you?
Well, as you know, I'm at the PEAL Center. Wait, let me get my card out so I know the telephone number because I don't call myself. PEAL, as you know, pealcenter.org. And to reach me directly, my number is 215-567-6143, extension 215. Or our toll-free number is 866-950-1040. And again... And the only thing I was going to say, one thing with the PEAL Center, you have phenomenal staff there, phenomenal family support people there that'll definitely will lead you or guide you and hold your hand for a little bit, but not too long, just enough to get you get the kite flying in the air. But and plus you have the ARC of Pennsylvania. You have disability rights, you have PATAN, you have CareerLink. There's so many other agencies, but again, we all partner together. So don't feel like you're not being loyal to the other because again, this, like I always say, this pie is too large for one agency or one organization to handle it. And we all partner with each other. Because there's times when I have to call Patana. There's times when I have to call CareerLink. call various agencies to get information, because there's no one place to get it. And let them know, please, please, that you are not alone. You are not alone in this journey. There's so many families that look to you too. They're watching. Trust me, people are watching you. And I didn't realize how many people were watching me, because again, I was busy doing stuff. I didn't take time to look around, and you'd be surprised. So your journey is your journey. But again, no matter what, you're still blessed, because again, that child or those children will just let you see the world from a whole different viewpoint. Yes. And let you understand and have that compassion and that patience. Oh gosh, things that are needed right now. So again, and take it as a learning moment too. It definitely is, because it's reciprocal.
Lucy Prawl from the PEAL Center, thank you so much for your time today. It's always an education sitting with you and talking with you.
Thank you, Tanya.
Always. And I just want to say also to our viewers and listeners, thank you also for joining us at Who Needs Shoes. You can find us at whoneedsshoes.com on the web. You can also find us here on YouTube, Ask Who Needs Shoes. You can also find us via Gmail at askwhoneedsshoes@gmail.com, and also on Instagram. Again, I'm Tanya Manning-Yarde, your host. Until next time, take care, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Take care.